Oh, hi. Ladies first. Thank you. I'm Skyler Caleb. I play Lucas in the film, and I'm one of the writers and producers.
My name is Angie Teodora Dick, middle name spelled Teodora, and I play Liz.
My name is Woodrow Hancock. I'm a writer and producer, and also in the movie as an actor.
Okay, awesome. So if you're writers, tell us, did you develop the characters with the actual intention of specifically playing them yourselves?
Yes.
We did, yeah. Yeah, we're narcissistic like that.
That's our thing.
Yeah, we just, yeah, okay.
So how do those characters relate to you as human beings? Are they based sort of around you, or are they totally different, something you always wanted to play?
Well, this is actually the most different character I've ever played for myself, because he's just like...
It's the best character.
Yeah, it's just like, Woodrow loves that I played a totally effed up character. Who's just like, never made anything of himself, addiction problems, gross makeup. They put gooey stuff in my hair to make it look like I hadn't showered in weeks. I actually didn't shower for several days beforehand, but then they put grease in my hair, so I could have showered.
All that to say.
Smelled
the whole time.
Yeah.
I wasn't in those scenes, thankfully.
I guess you weren't really in any scenes with me, were you?
No, not a lot. Like one, just the dinner scene.
Oh, the dinner scene, that's right. Did I smell?
No, not that I can recall.
No big deal. Didn't smell.
And what about you and the character you played?
So I was just a cameo.
Oh, okay.
But this guy's like a leading role here.
I'm not the lead.
Well,
He wrote himself a leading role.
I'm supporting.
Yeah.
And you're super supporting.
Super supportive. I got the only joke in the movie.
He does have the only laugh in the movie.
Yeah, so I got a nice joke in there and I'm out.
That sounds like the best possible scenario, right? Least work, most effect.
I wish that you came in on a bicycle and said the joke and just kept going.
So tell us a little bit about the genesis of the idea of the movie.
Yeah. So we as in myself, Skyler, and our other writing partner, James, who's also an actor in the film, we wrote the movie and kind of left it very much open to approach Anthony and ask him to join us and be a part of doing the film so that he can, put his signature on it, come in, still have room to play around. So, but we were inspired by the Germanic folklore of the Knicks. So we wrote some stuff that Anthony was able to really elevate. Trying to not spoil anything.
Yeah, we should have figured out how to explain what the Knicks is without spoiling it.
Explain it without explaining it.
Yeah.
What is it about Germanic folklore that makes it different, that makes it unique in this film?
Or Germanic? Okay, yeah. Sorry, the question was what?
What is it about Germanic folklore that kind of drew you in and made you interested in telling the story?
Well, it's a creature that kind of it manifests based on trauma that people are going through and things, and it's like a water-based creature, I would say. I don't know what it is about Germanic folklore. Like, we aren't specifically drawn to Germanic folklore, but for some reason we came across this, and it spiked something in us because it really hadn't been done before, and it's scary.
Yeah.
Don't spoil it.
I'm trying not to spoil it. Yes.
And how did you get involved in the film?
Well, I've actually worked with these guys before. And I also have worked with Anthony a lot. So when they first started, were in the works of the movie, I auditioned for it, and they liked what I did, and I got hired.
Loved.
And so it's actually my first horror movie that I've ever done. I've done like action-y horror comedy type stuff, but a straight horror drama. This is my first one that I've ever done. So when I actually got the call that I booked it, I was very ecstatic. Because
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Because this is your first.
Yeah, this is my first horror film. So I've loved them as a kid, growing up with them. So and now that I get to actually be in one and see people's reaction of getting scared from something that I got to be in is really exciting for me.
What was that process like, getting that sort of first behind-the-scenes glimpse of how the genre is actually made?
It was, you would think that it was so much easier than you would think it would be, because I've done other stuff, right? It's very straightforward, and the things that I've done. But in filming this, creating, those scary elements and getting to see can I say creature?
We can say,
okay.
we can say creature.
Getting
That's
to
not a
see,
swear word.
no, right? I'm trying. Okay, and getting to actually
Entity.
to see the creature, and then actually have dialogue with him when he's not acting, and then actually when he is acting, and kind of going in and outside those worlds and the elements and everything that we're in around us. It was just like a childhood dream come true, to be honest. But it was hard work because we're not always on a level of being scared all the time, right?
I am.
So I'll speak for
terrified right now.
myself. But there were definitely aspects in other movies I've done, you turn it on, you turn it off. But in this, because you really work yourself up to get to some of these levels, you need a second afterwards to go, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
To like come back down because you're kind of really living in those moments.
Well, we did a lot of, everything was like very practical, so you were there. It wasn't all CGI.
Yeah, no tennis ball to react to.
Exactly. So very much a real experience.
Yeah, we hired
Yeah.
a real creature from a different dimension to play Nick.
So when he was creeping around, I didn't have to act scared because he just looked
Right.
scary.
The tricky thing is we can't get rid of him now.
Was that really important to you guys as producers to have the really practical effects angle?
Yeah, it's an homage to like the origins of horror films. So
Yeah.
didn't want to just go all CGI with it. I mean, you can totally spend your budget doing that, but it kind of takes you out sometimes, or that's how we see it. So we wanted to. There's definitely CGI, but it's hard to discover.
Yeah, it's just to enhance the practical things that are happening, or
Yeah.
maybe to fix some little thing, but it's not the entire effect.
It would feel like CGI is just. A good CGI should not even be noticed,
Yeah.
and that's how hopefully this is received.
And we went as a culture, we went so far into the CGI stuff with all the Marvel movies and everything that now it seems like with stuff like Top Gun, where we're going back into like practical stuff, people are like, oh, this is like different, especially for like kids that grew up watching all CGI stuff now. Now going back into practical is almost like strange and interesting to them.
Yeah.
It's got a timeless feel.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same reason why Jurassic Park is still a good movie because they had
It still holds
they had
up.
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the writing side, what lessons did you learn from Awaken the Shadow Man, and is there any thematic overlap between that and this?
Well, it's similar in a lot of ways because they were both about like troubled families and like an entity around them. I guess we're staying in our lane. One could say.
Yeah.
What lessons did we learn? That's a good question. Did you learn any lessons?
I think they learned how to work on the fly because a lot of like the snow that we had wasn't supposed to be there.
That's true.
So there's a lot of
summer movie,
stuff,
yeah.
on the fly that on the day when you're actually filming and you have everything planned out and it's like perfect, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong, and as a team we have to adjust and like fix, what's happening on the day.
It
So.
turned out to be a blessing though, because now the movie has this snowy feel to it, which makes the production value just look really cool. It's great.
So from the get-go, when you were developing the film, you had the intention of bringing it straight to Anthony. What was it about his work that made you know he was the right fit?
He was. Go ahead.
Well, I've known Anthony for like 20 years and worked with him since I was very young. So I've been working with him on and off for a long time, and then he produced Shadow Man with us, and I watched his movie Boo that he did like I don't know what that was 15 years ago or something. It was great. That was his last like just straight horror movie before this Sharknado reign of terror that he did. And so I knew that he could do it. We knew he could do it, and we needed somebody to come in and kind of just take over the reins for us as make it his baby also.
We've also talked to him about working on projects together, and it never just lined up. And one of us is doing something not available. Shadow Man, he wasn't available to like say direct or write or things like that. He was able to come in and produce, and this kind of worked out where we had the forefront of time to say what's going to work for you. We want you a part of it. We haven't locked the story, So it was very hands-on for him. He could really put his flavor in.
Were there ever any moments when he brought something to the project, or there was an angle he wanted to take that you maybe weren't so sure about?
Oh, every day. But I mean, if you work with somebody, and you love it, if you work with somebody for 3 years or whatever making a project, there's always going to be things where you don't agree with each other or whatever. But in the end, everybody brings more than they take. He brought so much to the project. Even the Antioch, where he's from, is where we ended up shooting a bunch of the film. So it really became a personal movie for him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Anthony in this movie.
There's
Yes.
a lot of it, except his face, never in it. But
No.
but just his
Wait,
spirit.
no, I think so.
Is he in? Oh no, wait.
Yeah,
he
he's
is.
in it. He's in it. He's in the
You have to see
movie
if you
theater.
can find him.
Yeah, see if you can find.
Oh, I
him.
just spoiled it.
Well, maybe.
We'll bleep that part out. He's in the beep, right?
Everyone's like, did she just cuss? He's in what? He's in who's what?
The most interesting thing that I have learned working with Anthony is that his brain, as far as when it comes to his style and kind of the weird, interesting things that he comes up with, so off the wall and it's so crazy. And in working with him, you just have to learn to trust him. Because sometimes he'll come up with things that you don't quite understand in the moment, but because of that trust and the relationship that we've built with him, you kind of just roll with it, cross your fingers, and it always works out because he puts his heart and soul into everything that he does. And he's already kind of editing it in his head as he's going. He's just very talented like that. So, yeah.
What are some of the major ways in which the final project differed from the original idea you had?
Definitely the snow.
That's hard snow.
Yeah.
We said this earlier, but we found out it was going to do a crazy winter storm. There's no snow on the ground there at the time. We had found that out the night before everybody was supposed to leave. So it was the last leg of the movie. Everyone was traveling from the Antioch, San Francisco area. And so in that anticipation, we left early, realized we'd get snowed in, which means all the catering we had lined up could not come to feed cast and crew. We couldn't get out if we needed supplies, water, you name it. So then things like the pipes froze over. While we made it there prior, pipes froze over. And we had purchased just tons of water for safety in case. And then we purchased meals for 72 hours for all the cast and crew. And then the producers ended up cooking and turning into chefs for everybody. It was really, really different and fun and crazy. But because it was cold out and it was over St. Patty's, so I think we cooked shepherd's pie on St. Patty's and made a nice theme out of it. But that really changed the outcome of the film when snow is now a primary theme.
And it made us closer. We were like one big family shooting a movie. Essentially, because you kind of have to be at that point. It's all hands on deck. Yeah.
We did lose 4 crew members in the snow.
Only 4.
We still missed it.
We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back. We'll find them
Eventually.
at some point, when we have time.
Can you walk us through the casting process a little bit and how you found exactly the right people for the characters?
Yeah, we didn't actually do a ton of auditions, but it was a lot of people that we knew that we just kind of thought might fit the roles.
Also, casting was tough because we were doing it during COVID.
Yes.
Yeah, so there was just lots of unavailability for people.
Right.
Normal casting resources weren't available. So, just a lot of self-tapes. But then it was really early before we understood what COVID was. So people were hesitant to jump into anything except stay in the living room.
Right.
So casting was really different. And Cambria headed that up.
And how was the production affected by all of the regulations and things you had to follow during COVID?
Yeah, sorry. So I don't think at the time the unions had anything in place yet, rules set, so it wasn't even a real option. So we were kind of forced to do a non-union situation, and then we ended up working with them again, figuring it out. It was it's hard to kind of remember how chaotic that moment was. There's a lot of things changing every day.
Yeah. Really weird meeting people in masks and working with them for a couple weeks straight and never seeing the bottom of their face until they eat a meal, and you're like, yeah, all right. I expected a little more from down there, but you're fine.
He was expecting something different, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, let's say different.
That's a better word.
I feel like usually it's worse. But okay.
Are you guys saying horrible things about us?
Well,
Not just you.
Everybody.
What were some of the, in doing all of the practical effects, what were some of the most interesting sort of things you saw in the creation process? Like, oh, that's how you do that. That's cool.
In the creation of what?
Like any sort of the effects, the practical effects. Any particularly memorable things to do on a practical side?
I don't think she was on board yet, but in the development of the knits, from like the concept art, which then turned into like 3D modeling, which then turned into like a 3D color render, and then the prosthetics and the molding and hiring the performers for all that. So it was really different. Normally it's CGI, for us it's different. It's a lot of fun.
It was cool to see the art
So
develop.
cool,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and the actual prosthetics on the actor who played our monster, when you being this close, it looks real. It's so good. Our special effects artists that we had on the film were extremely talented, very, very just gooey. It just looks real.
Yeah.
That's all I can say is it looks real.
We made him sleep in it. He still hasn't forgiven us.
What are you most excited for fans to see when they finally get a chance to see the film?
Most excited.
I think I'm excited. I won't know this because they're not going to tell me, but I'm excited for people to see this movie and see how it relates to them in some part of their life, because I think anybody watching this can find any character in this movie and relate it to something that they've experienced, whether it's been personally or whether it's been a friend of theirs. It's just a very human story that is very relatable on a very wide scope, I think.
Yeah, whether you've dealt with addiction yourself or somebody else who's either addicted to a substance or maybe addicted to being stuck in a loop of some kind, whether it could just be a mental thing that they just can't get out of. I think we've all either been there or dealt with somebody that we love who is stuck in a loop.
Yeah.
I think I'm excited for audiences to see the internal story versus an external monster.
Yeah. If they get it.
If they
This
get it,
movie's
yeah.
going to make you think. It's not like spoon-fed to you.
Right.
It's supposed to. You have to pay attention. So, yeah.
Also, if you've never seen snow, you're going to enjoy it.
That's the tagline. We've got snow.
And on that note.